So I finally got a new historic service rifle. Long overdue. It's a SMLE, Lee-Enfield SMLE, BSA made, 1917 model, 303 British. This isn't going to be a full tear down video. As you can see, I'm improvising a workspace at the moment. But something that I found a bit of a snag when I first got it, and I thought might be helpful for other people, you will notice that this rifle's cocking piece isn't that standard rectangle shape that everyone else on YouTube seems to have. And when they take their bolt apart, everything just immediately comes apart nice and neatly. So I just wanted to do a quick note on that for anyone else who finds themselves with an older style cocking piece on their bolt. So you'll see it's got this D shape. I don't know if there is an official name for them. Everyone seems to call them something different. Oval, D-shaped, rounded. But what I've noticed with mine is that every other video I've seen, they tell you that the way to take your bolt apart is to uncock so that the striker firing pin is in its lowest position, and then simply undo the bolt head. Now, as you can see on this one, that doesn't want to work, and that is because this bolt head has a catch in it that latches onto the firing pin itself. So when you try and turn this, it's actually trying to turn the firing pin at the same time. Now, I made an absolute hash of this to start with yesterday. I couldn't work it out, so I took this retaining locking screw out so that the firing pin could turn, and I was then able to loosen off the bolt head, and at the same time that unscrewed the firing pin, which the person before me, who I think may have done something similar, hadn't got fully back into place. So it meant rather than when I unscrewed it and the firing pin partially receded, it completely fell out. And then I had to bodge putting it back together with a vise. So I've got a couple of pieces of advice for you actually in this video. So the first one is, don't do what I did. Don't be a wally. To take the bolt head off for cleaning, you need to clear the firing pin out of the way of that recess in the bolt head that's going to catch. And the way that you do that is to simply pull the firing pin out of the way, and you will see that that bolt head then moves freely and can just be undone nice and easily. And then you just slowly return the firing pin back into position, whether you want it in the cocked or uncocked position, and you'll see the firing pin is now exposed, and you can get in there and clean things without having to mess about removing the firing pin. The reason you don't want to accidentally remove the firing pin without being prepared is because, as I found out this morning, it requires a special tool to remove and replace the firing pin. It's an Enfield tool, and it's basically a T-bar with a socket that goes down into the body of the bolt, catches onto the latches on that are built into the firing pin, and then unscrews it that way, and unscrews it clear of the cocking piece. To do that, you obviously need to remove this screw, if that's what you're intending to do. Now, a quick tip: if you make the mistake that I did and you remove your firing pin by accident and you don't have the cocking piece, the Enfield tool, and this is a tip that was given to me by Kirk, by Sword and Musket, from whom I bought this rifle. Another quick look at it, because it is quite lovely. You can improvise with a vise. It's not advised and it's risky, but I did it and it works. You just have to be careful with it. So what I did was took the firing pin, put it with the mainspring into the body of the bolt, held the cocking piece in position, and then put the firing pin itself in the vise and ensured that the body of the bolt was never more than, a few mil above the vise. The purpose of that was to ensure that when I was working on it, I was keeping it straight, I was keeping it flat, and I wasn't risking bending the firing pin. And then once that was in place, I then just turned the assembly to start screwing the firing pin back into the striker piece. To get it started, you are going to be pushing against the mainspring, so slow and steady is the way to go. The other consideration is that, so there's two ways of doing it. Either you're going to screw the firing pin all the way back into the top, and then when you replace your bolt head, you're going to pull it clear and then screw your bolt head back in place. The other way of doing it, if you find that a struggle, and that mainspring is fairly strong, is to only screw the firing pin so far in, and then when you leave the firing pin down so that it can catch on the bolt head, when you screw the bolt head in, it will then screw the firing pin in the rest of the way. You then replace your stopping retaining screw that will stop your firing pin from screwing out during use, and you are back in action. Simple. Simple when you know how, and incredibly easy to get wrong. Or maybe I'm just an idiot, one or the other. To remember, when you're putting the bolt back in your rifle, make sure that the cocking piece is not in the decocked position, that it's in the cocked position, and it will then just slide back into place. You then lower your locking lug, push it forward, and it should just slip in. Now, if you get your cocking piece in the wrong position, you are going to mar your finish, as someone has done here. But as long as that cocking piece is in the cocked position and it's all the way around like it should be, it will just drop into place. And then you can either cock it in or pull the trigger to decock it, let the bolt slide forward, close the bolt down. As I say, I will, once I work out how to fully take this apart without breaking everything, I will do a full video on it. But for now, that's just a public service announcement in case anyone else finds themselves in a pickle like I did.